hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Hello, Nathan. I've got like my iPad directly in front of me so that I can look at these court documents. It'll be a lot easier than like flipping through papers. But let me see if I can go to my other cam so you can see. I can't see my main camera at all. Okay, from the side cam here, you can see this is right in front of me. So if you see me reaching, we're still experimenting. Maybe I can put it down a little bit so I can see my camera somewhat. In any event, we're trying this out. We're always trying out new things. Okay, let me do the YouTuber stuff and then we will get right started. I'm also not wearing the right glasses. I'm of the age where I have to have different sets of readers depending upon the distance in front of me, and I actually needed my 1.25 rather than my 2.25. Okay, but enough of that. I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to this channel if you have not already, and you can follow me on Twitter at Karen Ann Harlos. And of course, last but not least, please support me on Patreon. That's what helps keep this going. If I look exhausted, I am. But my Patreon is patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I am right now going chapter and verse, pretty much, through The Case for Christian Nationalism by Wolff, and my patrons get that in advance. So that is a patron benefit. Okay, let's get this off the screen. Little background for those of you who haven't been following this entire series, but somewhere up here I'll I'll put up I will put up the playlist. And yes, thank you, Nathan. If you're watching on Twitch, please use your Amazon Prime where you could support one creator. You have to redo it each month, unfortunately, but it does, no cost to you, throws a little lettuce towards the creator. So I would really appreciate that. Okay, forgot what I was saying now. Right, I'm going to put up the playlist up here, and also at the end of the video will be the playlist, because this isn't the first show. But just slight background for those of you who are just coming in on it now. Michael Wolff is a journalist. He does a lot of stuff with the Daily Beast. He was the journalist that had the interview with Jeffrey Epstein. If you remember the emails where they were talking about Trump being the dog that didn't bark, that was emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff has been doing stories on the Trumps, but particularly Melania Trump, where I'm trying to summarize his claims. Basically that she was in Epstein's social circles, that the marriage was a sham between those two, or sham might not even be the right word, a marriage of convenience, and how supposedly Trump first had relations with her. I don't know if it was on Epstein's plane, something like that. But he's connecting, allegedly, well, he is doing the connecting, but his allegations are allegedly Melania Trump into the world of Epstein. He's not claiming she abused children or anything like that, but that there are connections. She sent him a demand letter. Her Florida attorney sent him a demand letter telling him he better stop, or she's going to like sue him for $1 billion or multiple $1 billion or whatever it might be. He then beat her to the courthouse, went to the New York State Court, and filed a DEC action, a declaratory action, to try to get an advance judgment that he's not committing defamation, so on, so forth. Melania removed it to the United States District Court. It's a federal court in the Southern District of New York, for two bases, and this is getting us almost to the present. One, for diversity of citizenship, which you're allowed to remove from state court to federal court if citizens of two different states are involved in a lawsuit. So she's claiming she's a citizen of Florida and he's a citizen of New York. She threatened him for over $1 billion, so the amount in controversy would be over $75,000. Those are the two things that allow you to remove to federal court. He's claiming she's a citizen of New York. She filed a motion to dismiss based upon the citizenship issue, but also claiming that his underlying complaint didn't have any merit. We went into that the other show. That was the fast run through. This is, I don't know if he titled it, we're going to see it as basically a response to her motion to dismiss, but I think it's actually titled a motion to remand. Remand means to throw it back to state court. One of the other things Melania's attorneys had asked for was if the New York court didn't want to dismiss it because it failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted, that it should go down to the Florida federal court. Now, before we get started into the latest filing that I have in front of me, actually it's several filings and we're going to put them on the screen, want to make it clear to you guys, I am not an attorney. I just like to comment on ongoing legal cases. I am a paralegal, but I'm not an attorney. Nothing I say should be taken as any kind of official legal opinion whatsoever, because I am not licensed to do that. And I think I'm going to end up eating a little crow this show. Maybe not. The case is progressing, so views on the case change. I could tell you when this first started, I wasn't terribly impressed with the arguments put forth by Mr. Wolff's attorney. I thought Melania's attorney did better on paper. I actually wasn't terribly impressed with either of them. And I thought this was a slam dunk for her. Not on the merits of the underlying alleged defamation, just on the procedure. And pretty much last show I was like, yeah, she's going to get this dismissed. Now reading his response, pretty good. Well, it's not a response, it's actually a competing motion, I think. But I think I got to walk some of that back. These pleadings are good. I didn't look at the signature line to see if they were written by other people, and I just happen to like this style. But yeah, it looks like we might have a decent little scrap on our hands here. I should have known better, because there's a proverb that one man seems right till the other pleads his case, and that is certainly the case here. So let me get up this screen, and it should have on the screen, I need to look and make sure. Yeah, so it's got in front of it. Oh my God, I'm going to have to take back a little bit what I said. Oh, it's up at the top. Okay. The pleadings in Colorado, and I'm used to Florida pleadings, they don't look like this. The title of this pleading, it's up in the upper right, and it's notice of cross motion of Michael Wolff for remand to New York State Court, and in the alternative for discovery as to Mrs. Trump's citizenship and New York contacts and activities and for related relief. Oh boy, that's long. That's almost like a novel title from like the 1800s. You know how they used to have those titles that were like 10 sentences long? I'm used to the name of the pleading being below that line there. So at first I thought there wasn't a title on this pleading, but I was wrong. Okay. In this particular court, you have the motion, and then you do a memo of law in support of the motion. So the motion itself is short. You can see up at the top with the paster stamp, this is one of three. But let's go over. So the motion kind of summarizes what the memo of law is going to argue, but with supporting case law. So this is what Michael Wolff is asking for. It is to remand the case back to its New York State Court on the ground that this court, meaning the federal court, lacks subject matter jurisdiction. Jurisdictional questions are a big deal because the parties lack diversity, because he's arguing that she is a New York citizen and not a Florida citizen, and that she did not meet her burden on the statutory jurisdictional amount. We'll get into that when we get into the memo of law. Or in the alternative, allowing time for plaintiff Wolff to conduct discovery to be able to prove her New York citizenship. Number 3, taking up his motion that he filed in the lower court. It wasn't lower court, in the state court, because it's an entirely different thing. Confirming that the service of process measures that he did to try to serve her in New York are sufficient, or allowing him to serve her by alternative means. How do I get to the next page here? Well, you guys are, I think I did this wrong. Let me see if it'll go to the next PDF page. No, why did, oh, it did it. It did it. Yay. Okay. I'm sorry, that was very exciting to me. Resolving the issue of her citizenship, giving priority to the court. We're on number 5 of the question of subject matter jurisdiction. And 6, if the court allows defendant to challenge the jurisdiction, again, for discovery, and that number 7, her motion to dismiss lacks, he wants to get rid of that. Let's just get down to brass tacks. We're not going to get into number 8. Number 8 is a catch-all phrase that's in every motion, which is, granting such and other further relief as the court deems just and proper. That's just like, that's like the end of a prayer, like through Jesus Christ our Lord, amen. Okay. So in support of it, it's a cross motion. That's interesting. It's not a response. It's a cross motion. I wonder if he's going to do a response. I'll let you guys know. Okay. So now that we got that, let's go directly to the memo of law, because that's where things get juicy. So this should be the memo of law. Let me get it up here on my iPad. I have it in my Kindle app. Okay. Open up. Open Sesame. Oh, I was on page 16 on that one. This thing's 21 pages long, as you can see up at the top, but a lot of that is like the certificate of service and stuff. And we're just going to recap it. Because if you want to read it, you can read it. And if you don't have a Pacer account, write me. I'll send you these pleadings. Okay, so we're going, this is the table of contents, table of authorities, still the table of authorities. Then we're getting into the actual memo. So, actually, I want to look, what was it titled? We didn't look at that. Plaintiff Michael Wolff's Memorandum of Law in opposition. Oh, it is. It is a response. It's a memo of law in opposition. This is kind of weird the way this was done. I'm not saying it was wrong. It's just not what I'm used to. Memo of law in opposition to defendant's motion to dismiss and in support of his cross motion to remand and for further relief. Okay. Now that we got our bearings by reading the title, here's the preliminary statement. I have highlights here on mine. That's all I'm going to go through. So we're starting with the real error. So it's the preliminary statement on subject matter jurisdiction, and they misspelled jurisdiction. Do you see that? Listen, I prepare pleadings all the time in my job. So, like, people misspell stuff. In fact, I was giving Liberty Centuries a copy of a certain paragraph in a past manual, a convention manual, and there's been no convention manuals this year for state chairs. You missed me yet? But in any event, I gave them a screenshot of something from a past delegate manual, and I noticed one of my big bolded titles was misspelled. So listen, we all do it. I just happen to, it's like right in my face right now. That's all I can see. So somebody didn't do a spell check. Preliminary statement on subject matter it's Candace Owens thing, jurisdiction, and proper framing of motion. So he says the real error is with, and I'm not going to do the whole Mrs. Trump, we're just going to say Melania. Melania's counsel, by persisting with the merits motion and other 12B grounds, motion to dismiss grounds, when subject matter jurisdiction is not established, any ruling on issues other than subject matter would be a nullity if diversity jurisdiction does not exist. Let me try to put that in English. The court cannot determine anything if they do not have jurisdiction over the case. You have to establish jurisdiction before the court can take action. I believe he's right here. We'll see what their reply is. I'm not going to make the mistake I made before of prejudging before I see all the arguments. So basically he's saying he filed a motion to dismiss that got into the merits of his underlying complaint. But really, the federal court first has to determine if removal to federal court jurisdiction exists, which means that Melania Trump has to prove she's not a citizen of New York or she's a citizen of another state, and that the amount in controversy is over $75,000. Okay, and he's saying the court has the authority to take that issue up. And he gives some legal arguments in the bottom about certain orders being appealable or not appealable. We're doing a high-level view here. Okay, so moving to the next page. I'm reading the paragraph right before argument. He basically says the court should defer ruling on any other motions raised in Melania's motion. Any other issues raised in Melania's motion. The only issue that must be resolved at this stage is the question of whether there is actual diversity of citizenship. I'm surprised he didn't mention there, though, and the dollar value jurisdiction, because he raises that later, and I think this is an error that they just didn't put that there. It's not like a fatal one. I just think they missed that. Maybe they're starting to get to their page limit, because there is a page limit. But what is a reply page limit in New York? Curious. Because the 21 pages, not all of them count. It might be 15 pages. All of the table of authorities, table of contents, the caption, and at the end when we get to the signature pages, none of those count towards the page count. So he gives the argument. I'm gonna see what I highlighted here in this. But you could see, he says here, removal statutes are construed against removal. So he's basically saying it's her burden of proof. Here was where, so I thought the subject, the jurisdictional argument was really, really good. And then he goes on to some technical arguments. An individual may have several residences, but they can only have one citizenship. So he does not dispute that she has a residence in Florida, but he's saying her citizenship is in New York. And he says the citizenship of a person is where, and he's putting obviously in the feminine pronouns for her, where she has her true fixed home and principal establishment, and to which, whenever she is absent, she has the intention of returning. And then he summarizes it. Citizenship is the place which is the center of one's domestic, social, and civil life. Okay. So he's basically saying while she has a residence in Florida, her citizenship is in New York. And at the bottom, you can see he says it's not his burden to prove her citizenship because she removed it to federal court based upon her allegation that she's a Florida citizen. The burden of proof is on her here. When it comes to sufficiency of service of process, the burden of proof is going to be on him, but right now it's on her. Okay. It says, if the court, if for any reason the court has a question on the issue, it should not rule on citizenship until he is allowed an opportunity to conduct discovery, to be able to prove the point and refute any assertion she has that she's a Florida citizen. Very, very clever. You know, the Trumps do not want to get into discovery, even on something that seems as seemingly as benign as this. She does not want attention to this case, which fundamentally does involve statements about associations with Epstein. Okay. And he says, her effort to claim and prove Florida citizenship runs against another compounding burden. And I just need to look up something here. I do not know why this is not streaming on Twitter. I think I just need to remove permissions and reconnect it. something happened. Probably need to update my operating system and all that. I hate to do that, but I think I'm going to have to. So he brings up, it's funny because something similar came up in the Candace Owens case, if you remember, where she claims that Delaware doesn't have jurisdiction over her, yet she sued in Delaware in a different case. So something interesting here. He said in 2017, but you know, that's going back a bit. It's right after Trump was elected the first time, but not going to critique his evidence. He said that she brought suit in New York, and she asserted in that suit that her citizenship was in New York. So that'd be very interested to see, because one of her proofs that she's a Florida resident is that she has a Florida driver's license and is registered to vote in Florida. I wonder in 2017 if she had those two same things. If so, this is really going to count against her. Okay, next page. If I have anything on that one right. The Florida citizenship artifice, as he puts it. She claimed to change citizenship. The purpose behind it may have been an attempt to assist President Trump in his efforts to escape the consequences of New York judgments and lawsuits. Could be. But this Florida artifice is neither effective nor genuine as to Melania, whose more permanent and sustained ties and personal attachments are and always have been to people, activities, commitments, and places in New York City. Melania's counsel's sole proffer for their claim of change is a driver's license and a voter registration. So it said that, and he says how that's not absolutely dispositive for citizenship. Well, he goes a little stronger, because on the next page, you'll see at the top, he says the driver's license and voter registration establish nothing. I don't know if I think that's a bit overstating the case, but he's really given it a fighting chance to rebut it. I thought that was particularly strong when I was looking at her motion to dismiss. Okay, yeah, we don't need anything on that page. Now, one of the things in dealing with where cases are best tried is the idea of forum non-convenience. But he goes in here and says, like, it's much more inconvenient for him to go to Florida than for her to come to New York. But here he says it's hard to comprehend that Melania, with all her extensive and sustained family, social, and business ties to New York, cannot be said to be at home in New York. Okay. Let's go here. Okay. Now, an argument I didn't think was good, and I still don't think it's good. But lawyers sometimes have to, it's like I said with the LNC, JFC. The LNC responded to some requests for additional information from the FEC, and the attorney that answered it wasn't Oliver Hall. It was the Team Kennedy attorney, or an attorney associated with Kennedy. I thought, even though I think the JFC is illegal and the response fails, I actually, though, do think the attorney wrote an excellent response. Sometimes attorneys have to work with crappy source material, and you've got to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. And I will give props to that Kennedy attorney who tried to make perfume out of that steaming pile of horse crap that was the fact pattern for the LNC JFC. So here, I do think Melania has the upper hand, but I will say that obviously some of the New York law he's citing, I don't know anything about New York law. I'm doing generalities of what I know. So one of the issues was might have to go back to some of the prior shows, because I'm not going to explain all this in full. But his underlying complaint was an anti-SLAPP action against Melania. And he's claiming that this demand letter, this Florida demand letter, here it's referred to as the 77 notice, 770 notice, the 770 notice, because it's a requirement in Florida before you can file a defamation suit that you have to send this type of demand letter. To me, that is pretty good proof that she was intending, if she were ever to sue him, that it was going to be in Florida. And I do think it speaks to her intent that Florida is, in fact, her citizenship. But he points out here that the 770 notice repeatedly cited New York law, showing some kind of awareness that New York courts had jurisdiction here. I had agreed with Melania, and now I'm curious after reading his argument. The anti-SLAPP statute in New York is relatively new. It's actually a relatively new concept nationwide. California, I think, was the first state to adopt it, so they have the most mature body of case law when it comes to anti-SLAPP. We talked about this in the Candace Owens case because Delaware just strengthened its anti-SLAPP, but the complaint was filed before it went into effect, the Candace Owens one, so it's not going to be a factor there. But here it's a factor. And I had said, I'm not so sure you can do an anti-SLAPP action until you actually have a SLAPP. And the way I defined a SLAPP was an actual lawsuit, like a demand letter to my understanding. But reading this memo of law, New York can be different. Again, not an attorney, certainly don't, even in paralegal work, don't specialize in defamation. Like, I've been an insurance defense paralegal for most of my career. But from what I understand of SLAPP, there has to be an actual lawsuit, not just a demand letter. And he treated the demand letter as the commencement of an action. Maybe it is in New York. I don't know. But he says a 77 notice to the recipient speaker, and then he puts in quotes defendant, because he really wasn't a defendant. He still isn't a defendant. He's the plaintiff in this case. Is indeed a SLAPP claim under New York anti-SLAPP law. Perhaps he's correct. Again, ignorant of New York law. It is precisely the kind of harm that the anti-SLAPP law was intended to interdict. I don't want to do Candace Owens. Is that how you pronounce that? I never really pronounced that word. Is it interdict or interdict? Somebody put the phonetics in chat here. I just don't know about that. How is a demand letter saying you will file suit? I just think it's about lawsuits. But again, I could be wrong. We could all be learning something here. But then he goes on to say that if you look down at the bottom of this page, if the amount in controversy, because remember, one of the jurisdictional limits to remove to federal court is that the amount in controversy has to be over $75,000. Now, if she were suing him, the demand letter said $1 billion. Okay. But he's not suing her for money when he ran to the courthouse first. He is suing for a declaration of rights. So he says, if the amount in controversy cannot be ascertained or has not been properly established, there can be no subject matter jurisdiction, and the case must be remanded to New York State Court. Okay. And he also says, this was clever. She argues that there was no, I can never pronounce this word, just, you see the word down there? Justiciable. I'm doing Candace Owens. I never could pronounce this word, though. Whatever that word is, case, at least I know I can't pronounce it, or controversy, there can be no subject matter jurisdiction. And again, the case must be remanded to New York state law. So he's hoisting her on her own petard. She filed a motion to dismiss saying that, I'm going to use terminology I can pronounce, failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted, which is like this is what that said, which is much more words that easier to pronounce. So if there is no real controversy, the court doesn't have jurisdiction. If she's not a Florida citizen, the court does not have jurisdiction, this federal court. If the amount in controversy isn't over $75,000, the court does not have jurisdiction. This attorney did very well here, in my opinion. And then he goes on to argue that in that first full paragraph, for a federal court to have subject matter jurisdiction, there must both be diversity and a that word, controversy. Okay, so I'm going to see here. Here's his slap argument. It's in that little quote there. Wolff he's quoting from his own complaint. Wolff is entitled to a declaratory judgment. Every once in a while, I like doing it's not doing it here. That's on my main screen. Hold on. I wanted to do the camera switch. Well, I can't figure out how to do it on this little bubble, so no fancy pants video stuff here. So Wolff is entitled to a declaratory judgment on all claims related to or referenced in the threat letter because significantly the claims impede and chill future reporting and writing that Mr. Wolff has committed to doing regarding Epstein, Mr. Trump, and Mrs. Trump. In many respects, that's the private purpose. Now I get it. He's saying his speech is being chilled by the threat. But I'm not so sure slap law applies here. Again, it might in New York. I certainly don't think it does in Colorado or in Delaware. Well, it certainly doesn't in the Candace Owens case in Delaware. Okay, next one. He's arguing he states a proper cause of action for a declaratory judgment on asserted claim of libel and on the continuation of asserted libel under New York anti-SLAPP and an affirmative anti-SLAPP against Trump's 770 claims of libel. So now you're getting the outline of what his arguments are. Now this is interesting. This was the clever argument, but I don't buy it. But again, it's making silk out of a sow's ear. So in the second paragraph, Brito, that's her Florida attorney, 770 and it's .01, that's Florida statute. Letter was not a mere communication, nor was it an unasserted claim for defamation. The letter was not by any stretch a typical threat letter. Well, I think it was under Florida law. It was not a mere chastening shot. I really am doing Candace Owens today. Chastening shot across an adverse party's bow. Mrs. Trump's counsel now tries to gamely propose that there is no actionable controversy. But Mr. Brito served this letter pursuant to and citing to Florida statute, I don't do Roman numerals, section 770.01. What is that? What X is 10, right? Is it 45? Is that, I don't do Roman numerals unless it's in bylaws, and God help me if I ever see a bylaw that goes up to that high. I think Colorado goes to XXIII. Maybe it goes to XIV. I know that's 14. But I don't know what this Roman numeral here is, really. Somebody tell me in chat if you want to. The statute required that the libel, and then he quotes it, plaintiff shall serve notice in writing on the defendant, specifying the article or broadcast and the statements therein, which he or she alleges to be false and defamatory. And then he goes, see, it says plaintiff and defendant. So he says, in case there is any question, Mr. Wolff was therefore a defendant according to the language of the statute. I call BS. That statute is talking about the claim, about a requirement in Florida before you can file suit. So it is forward looking to when someone files suit for defamation in Florida, you have to plead in your complaint that you served this 770 letter. At that point, you are a plaintiff and a defendant. That's the whole purpose of the letter. It doesn't retrospectively, before there's a complaint, make you a plaintiff or a defendant. I think he is really playing with words here. It makes no sense. A statute can't statutorily, like outside the rules of Florida rules of civil procedure, make you a defendant when there hasn't been some kind of action filed against you in court or an administrative law or something. You're not a defendant. This is just, again, a clever argument, but I think a bad argument. I'd love to know your thoughts, particularly if anyone watching is an attorney or has legal experience at all. And then here, second paragraph, Melania's letter had an additional feature to it of note. It largely relied on New York case law. So she not only knew that the letter was going to a New Yorker, but also that it would engage New York libel law. And if you go down to almost at the bottom, he said this letter triggers the cause of action and remedies under New York anti-SLAPP. In short, it triggers anti-SLAPP protections. Again, I don't buy that, but, you know, that's the argument he's making. And I think he made it very gamely. Okay, down there. Yeah, I don't really need to get into that. So that's pretty much the end of that. I want to put up something that I didn't look at before the show. There was an affidavit that was submitted in support of this memo. So let's put that up here and we're going to look at this together. And I did not put this on my Kindle. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read it on the screen. So maybe we won't because I'm an old lady and I'm blind. Okay, no, that's not what I want to do. I wanted to do that. Okay, so let me take this down here. Oh, God, no way am I going to read that. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to make it bigger. Let's make me a little smaller so that we can see if we can read this. Okay. Nothing particularly interesting there. Okay, he's given the evidence of her New York citizenship. So she owns her own separate apartment in Trump Tower. She owns it through an LLC that's authorized to do business in New York. Okay. It says Baron Trump. I don't think that's particularly relevant. It supposedly has his own apartment. So do some other relatives. Oh, I can hardly read this. But I'll just flip it through for you guys. Let's see here. So he's basically just giving her business, family and business associates contacts. Oh, she has an immigration lawyer. Don't tell ICE in any event. So just giving her substantive contacts in New York. So, oh, and there's a documentary for leading up to, is he talking about the Melania documentary? The Melania production deployed a dedicated production crew in New York City. Oh, that would be rich if he's using her documentary against her. Oh my goodness, that is something. The prolonged portions of the documentary shows Mrs. Trump at Trump Tower, where she meets with a series of people and consultants. Interesting. That is, I actually find that kind of funny. Okay. And then the Florida citizenship artifice. So you can see they laid out very good groundwork. We'll see what the court has to say, that she is not a citizen of Florida. She might be a resident of Florida, but not a citizen of Florida. They are splitting that hair. Now, I was trying to see where they mention the exhibits. That's one thing that made me want to put this up on the screen, because I'll show you guys the exhibits. So there was Exhibit A, and I didn't see where that was mentioned, but let's scroll down to Exhibit A. This is the LLC. showing that it's in New York. But I think this next exhibit he did just to twerk Melania. Wait till you see this. So Exhibit B. It is the Epstein letter. Dear G, how are you? So it's the showing that he's not completely off his rocker. This stuff hadn't come out by that time, I don't think. In any event, so he posts this, and then her response, Ghislaine's response with Sweet Pea. And look, oh my goodness, I think he did this as the tweaker. Did I say twerk before? I did say twerk. I do not, let me say for the record, I do not think Michael Wolff wants to twerk Melania. I meant tweak. In any event. Okay, so now you're up to speed. What do you think? This case is ramping up to be pretty juicy, don't you think? We'll be covering this until the Candace Owens. The court is going to have a hearing. I wonder if it will be like streamed. That would be awesome. On April 28th, this case will get moving, I am sure, before then, but there's another case I want to cover. I'm sorry, this is like turning into a legal political channel. That's okay. We evolve. I'm not only going to be doing legal commentary, but there's just so much going on, and I'm tired of responding to Matt Walsh. In any event, the other case I want to cover is, crap, I can't remember the name of the organization, but it's the National Historical Preservation. I know that's not what it's called. It's historical something that sued in DC to stop construction on Trump's ballroom. And the Trump administration filed something saying it's national security. Now, that case might be over by the time I get a chance to review the pleadings, but that is probably one I'm going to want to cover as well. Okay, everyone, I hope you have an awesome night. I am putting back up, though, one second, my YouTuber stuff. And remember, super chats always matter as well. And super thanks after the fact, but here you go. And when the beautiful bean footage, the closing credits roll, there will be a link to the playlist for all of the shows I've already done on this. And I hope you guys have an awesome night. Let me find where I could do my closer. Okay, here we go. Bye-bye.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business, not because they want to